Yeah, I do receive threats. It's been a difficult time. I've been attacked since the very beginning of my mandate. I don't say that it's been a pleasant journey, and it doesn't change either my commitment or the results of my work, I think. After 5 months of monitoring and analyzing Israel's onslaught on Gaza, my report finds that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the threshold indicating that Israel is committing the crime of genocide against the Palestinians as a group in Gaza has been met. Specifically, Israel has committed 3 acts of genocide with a requisite intent: killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, and deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. The flagrant and systematic slaughter of Palestinian civilians, the deployment of unlawful weaponry, the utter obliteration of vital civilian infrastructure, including the deliberate targeting of all Gaza's hospitals, and the man-made starvation of the Palestinian people transcend the realm of war crimes and crimes against humanity that had been seen in the occupied Palestinian territory before. The monstrosity unfolding is accompanied by a pervasive anti-Palestinian narrative and dehumanization emanating from the uppermost tiers of Israeli society, including high-ranking officials with command authority, and frequently reflected in soldiers' actions on the ground. This reflects the intent, ad dolus specialis, to destroy in whole or in part, which is what distinguishes genocide from other atrocity crimes. In the case of Gaza, there exists a chilling clarity of this purpose: the systematic eradication of an entire people, or at least a significant part thereof. One of the key findings is that Israel's executive and military leadership and soldiers have intentionally distorted jus in bello principles, subverted their protection functions in an attempt to legitimize genocidal violence against the Palestinian people. The only reasonable inference that can be drawn from the unveiling of this policy is an Israeli state policy of genocidal violence toward the Palestinian people in Gaza. I will now be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Albanese. We'll first take questions from the room. Reuters, please.
Madam Special Rapporteur, thank you. Just wondering on a personal level for you, given how vocal you have been and how some of your statements might not please certain people, have you received any threats, any attempts at intimidation while working on this report? Thank you.
Thank you for your concern. I mean, yeah, I do receive threats. It's been a difficult time. I've been attacked since the very beginning of my mandate. I don't say that it's been a pleasant journey, but I can tell you it's much more. I mean, most of the pain comes from where I have to observe and monitor and investigate day by day. Yeah, I do receive threats. Nothing that so far I have considered needing extra precautions. Pressure, yes, and it doesn't change either my commitment or the results of my work, I think.
Yes, good afternoon. I'd like to ask you on the intent of the Israeli government or Israeli militaries to commit genocide. You were saying that there is intent, and you're quoting the President of Israel, the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and some top militaries. But these are only quotes given in speeches or in other circumstances. I would like to ask you, do you have a written document by the government with a clear intent to commit genocide?
Do you think that in Rwanda and in Bosnia and Herzegovina, any government officials wrote a document saying, I want to commit genocide? Have you seen anything like that? I'll answer this for you. No, it doesn't work like that. Those statements are just the tip of the iceberg, because I have a word limit in my reports, which is quite strict. Otherwise, we could write an encyclopedia with what has been said and done. And I said it, and I mean it. If the International Criminal Court is serious about investigating what Israel has done in Gaza, as of the 7th of October, only as of the 7th of October, it will be busy for decades. Looking at the previous genocides and jurisprudence that has been developed on those cases, it's clear that the intent can be direct in statements, public statements, declarations, having people with command authority, or having the prime minister and having the president of the state issuing statements. They are so dehumanizing, evoking violence. Not once, not twice, continuously, for months. It's supported by jurisprudence in other cases that this is genocidal incitement. And look what, it's been reflected, it has reverberated across the conduct of troops on the ground. They've used the same words. Amalek. Amalek is a program in itself. And then, as you say, are there documents? If you read my report, you will see that I've quoted official documents, legal analysis, that the legal justification that Israel uses. There are two, one version and then an updated version with the key legal findings. And it's exactly what I said. It's humanitarian camouflage, because they justify what they're doing using IHL categories, evacuations and human shields. Everyone is a human shield. Everyone is a human shield. Women, children, anything that is between the troops and whatever is their objective. And by the way, the overall objective, eradicating Hamas, destroying Hamas, which is, it's not even a real military objective. Because one thing is to neutralize, destroy the military capacity of an organization. Another thing is to target also the civilian components. And this is what has been done. Every Hamas affiliate has been considered targetable, killable, and so their family members. This explains the 30,000 people who have been killed plus. I mean, this is a conservative figure I'm referring to.
Thank you for taking my question. Over here. Sorry. I was wondering if you could say something about the countries that are providing weapons and other support to Israel. You've called for an arms embargo and sanctions, but what responsibility do those countries carry for providing the weapons up until now? And now that you've called for this and you're saying that this is a fairly clear requirement, what is their responsibility if they continue? If you could say something about that. Thank you.
Yes, I formulated that recommendation because this is a clear emanation of the Genocide Convention. When there is a risk of genocide, there are obligations that are immediately have to be followed. So there are different things, but suspending arms transfer, suspending weapons transfer is necessary in order to reduce the level of hostilities and violence against civilians. After the 26th of January's ICJ interim ruling, there was no doubt whatsoever that that was the obligation pending on all states, and this has not been acted upon. So I didn't formulate. Of course, we know who's the main political and also economic supporter of Israel. So of course, the eye and the mind immediately goes to the United States, but there are other states. And I intend to look further into this, so probably my next report will be on this topic, on the issue of responsibility.
We'll go to journalists who are participating online, starting with Antonio Brotto, FA. Sorry.
I just wanted to follow up. I'm sorry. I just wanted to check. Would you say that they could be considered complicit in the genocide that you've seen?
This is not something that I can conclude right now, but the risk is there. And there are already legal proceedings that have been started in the United States, for example, by the Center for Constitutional Rights. But I'm not in a position to conclude that as well.
Okay, we'll move to journalists who are attending this press conference online, starting with Antonio Brotto, Spanish news agency, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask if you think that your conclusions should accelerate the verdict of International Court of Justice regarding genocide in Gaza. Some say that it could take years for them to make a decision, but do you think it could be faster? Thank you.
I do not know if this will accelerate the proceedings of the court. I imagine that my report brings to the fore an important piece of analysis, which is what I called humanitarian camouflage. Because the tendency is to look at what Israel has done as isolated war crimes. And this is why I say, well, if we take a step back and look at the full picture, and for once we try not to miss the forest for the trees, we get it. Also because it's been said, as I said, the intent is so ostentatious. I mean, they're already planning how to rebuild Gaza for the settlers. It's shocking. And so probably that will provide further analytical elements. But my objective as a special rapporteur is not necessarily to influence the court, is to make sure the member states comply with international law, because it's not an act of charity. It's an international obligation they have. And a society which accepts to depart from international law, it's a society, and I talk about the international community, which accepts to face barbarity, because this is when we leave the use of force unchecked, rule our international order.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for taking the question. Your report includes a recommendation for deploying an international protective presence. I wondered if you could just dig into that, explain what it is you got in mind, and say whether or not you've engaged and had any discussions with states on that particular issue, where the thinking is going on that. And a second question, just following up on my colleagues, you say it's too soon for you to determine whether states providing arms are complicit in commission of war crimes or potentially genocide. Could you just explain a little bit what the reasoning there is? I mean, on one hand, we've got states that are providing weapons that are being used directly in the hostilities that you say may amount to acts of genocide. So what's holding you back from identifying complicity? Thank you.
What holds me back from referring to complicity is that I've not investigated this. I mean, I don't throw claims out there on matters that I've not investigated, as simple as that. Although, I say, it's under our watch. But if it's so much under our watch, why other responsible actors do not intervene? So I will, as I said, I will investigate this, and unless there are no other urgent priorities. And I apologize to the journalist before because he asked me another piece of question, and I hope he won't mind me answering in English. But no, I've not looked at whether genocide, the crime of genocide, extends to the West Bank and East Jerusalem. But again, the problem is that here there is genocide is committed against a group in whole or in part, and here the attack is against the Palestinian as a people, where they are still a fracture of the international orders that hits the people as such, so not the people of Gaza, the Palestinian people in Gaza. I must apologize, but I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm also extremely sick today, and it's a bit painful to be here. So I apologize, but I will ask you to repeat the first part of the question because I missed it.
Yeah, sure. It was the reference in your report to the deployment of an international protective presence. What did you have in mind, and have you had any discussion with people? What's the thinking around that? Thank you.
Yes, of course. Those who have followed my work since I became a special rapporteur know that I've been recommending the establishment of a protective presence for a long time now. And I will tell you what I mean, but let me tell you before that anyone I've engaged with, states and UN alike, roll their eyes when I say that. To say, Israel will never accept it. And at what point will we be able to draw a line and say, enough, you cannot decide everything without consequences? Clearly, it doesn't work. Condemning Israel and saying that Israel doesn't respect international law is not enough. So what I mean by protective presence, it's an international presence, meaning people who are neither Israelis nor Palestinians, who are outside of the, let's say, the conflict dynamic, although for me the word conflict is not necessarily accurate to describe what happens. But if we need a force that interposes itself between the Palestinians and the not Israeli citizens, because there are so many, not enough, but so many Israelis who are engaged with the Palestinians in the occupied Palestinian territory, in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, with shepherds and trying to, they are a protective presence. They go, so this is the thing that should be done, making sure that pending the withdrawal of Israel's military presence in the occupied Palestinian territory, there is a shelter between the Palestinians and the Israeli settlers, armed settlers, and the army, so that because their physical integrity now is more at risk than ever, and so this could take. I mean, I was not necessarily thinking of blue helmets, but it could also be the passive presence as it was called in the 90s, that UNRWA refugee affairs officers used to engage with. So just people who go there and make sure that there is no harm done, because now the violence has escalated to a point that is really unacceptable.